ended fast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the premiere episode of the BROLIGARCHY, which is a new collaboration with Punch Up Pod and Bullhorn Bulletin, Zainab Day, Pat Cody, and me, Lila Charles Lee. Hello. How are you, my friends? How's everybody?
Zaina, you go first.
Doing great. Doing great today.
Absolutely.
We took a day break, 24 hours break from the news. Oh, go ahead, Pat.
That's so necessary.
I can't wait to eviscerate all these tech bros who we were just before we went on air, we were saying if they weren't rich, they'd all be incels. This is who they are.
It's pretty clearly what motivates them. Listen, we all know what motivated Zuckerberg to start Facebook, right? To rate the girls at college. What a disgusting way to start a business. So yes, there's a lot to talk about. They are clowns, but they are also evil, and they have their fingers on every aspect of our government and our world. So there is a lot to get to. And
when dystopian 4chan trolls want to start their own monarchies is where we're at.
Yeah, that is true. They are destroying democracy. They all have God complexes, truly. They do not want any of the mess of a democracy.
So. Yep. And for anyone watching, the plan is we're starting with just a basic foundation of who a lot of these players are. And as the series goes on, we're going to dig into different sections and focus on people closer and certain issues. But this is more of a broad overview tonight and laying out who some of the players are.
Yeah. And, we're going to show a quick clip of what seemed to wake a lot of people up to the BROLIGARCHY, which, that term was actually coined almost 2 decades ago, honestly. But just like pretty much everything else, Donald Trump ripped off the mask. So it's not that this is new that we're in an oligarchy, but the speed with which Trump is enacting so many of their policies and this sort of just brash, brazen way that he venerates these billionaires and has them sit behind him at the inauguration, closer even than his own cabinet, I think has made a lot of people realize how deep into this dystopia we really are.
And throughout the series, we'll be discussing how the current Trump administration's plans, people always talk about Project 2025, but there's a tremendous amount of plans that are directly tied to these key players, from J.D. Vance's connection to people like Peter Thiel, to a guy we're going to introduce you to, if you guys are unfamiliar with, Curtis Yarvin and his plans. Everything from gutting the government to company towns. Their plans are being accelerated by the Trump administration. And so we're going to dive into that, and we're watching it unfold in real time, them reaching their goals. So, we talk about the Christo-nationalist often, and they're tied to these people somewhat, but these are plans that the media has essentially not really covered in the corporate media. And it is something that astonishes me that it's not on the news every single night.
Absolutely.
And if it feels like this is accelerating under Trump, that's actually part of the plan that we're going to get to. Accelerationism is built into dark enlightenment and some of these things people haven't really been talking about enough, which are strategies just like Project 25 that really do need some more coverage.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. So this is a quick overview of Trump's BROLIGARCHY.
Did you ever think when you voted for President Trump that things were going to cost you more?
I never thought I was going to lose this much money, this fast.
The president says he doesn't care.
Couldn't care less if they raise prices.
The Trump cabinet has more billionaires than any in history.
People are being laid off.
Double the number of job losses.
It's very hard to find a job right now.
Largest one-day gain in the history of the Bloomberg Billionaires Index.
I find that I do better in bad markets.
The stock soars 21%.
A small business like mine will be out of business before the end of the year.
VA cuts already taking a toll on veterans' health care. Social Security offices are being closed.
It's scary.
If you are big tech CEOs who gave big, you are glad you did that.
Largest tax cuts,
which go to the wealthiest 0.1%.
Everyone's lost how much money in their 401k and he's golfing?
Destroying people's lives for no reason.
He made $2.5 billion today, and he made $900 million.
One of the craziest parts of that is that all of those people were Democrats up until 2024 on November, 5th. I mean, like they just kind of started seeing the light and where their bread was going to be buttered.
Yeah, they love to play both sides, don't they? And we'll also be covering, and this will be later on in the show, later on in the series, but the Democrats are on board with a lot of this nonsense too. They just have their own neoliberal branding of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And like who gave Elon Musk 60% of all the satellites that are orbiting our universe was under Obama. Probably one person shouldn't have that much ability to look into all of our data, right? All right, so let's talk about, should we start talking about the plan, the praxis, where it started, or where do you want to start with this?
I think that's good. Like we can, a lot of the people that we are going to be discussing today, some of the names you've heard of, some of them you may not have, are involved with this plan called Praxis. And it's basically a cult. I mean, I think it's a cult, but it's like a billionaire cult. And their aims are to start these little countries, their own countries, where they rule over everyone. And we'll be getting into more of that later. But we wanted to start it off with some of this, you guys checking out this website. So who are the folks that are behind it? Peter Thiel, who owns Palantir. And what else does he own, Lila? There's a lot of different.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he has his hands in everything. He was part of the PayPal mafia, a huge supporter of J.D. Vance. And he's actually one of the few who was a Republican and a Donald Trump supporter back in his first regime in 2016, unlike the other ones who are converts.
Right.
And he's also involved.
Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
He's heavily involved in AI now, as well as software, all the major intelligence, every three-lettered intelligence group pays Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's also, and Lila just told me this before the show, but Patrick Friedman, the grandson of Milton Friedman, who had this idea to create his own countries out in the ocean, like build these islands where they have their own like libertarian anarcho-capitalist, like wet dreamscape, right? And then there's Srinivasan, who we'll be talking about, who wrote the book Network State, which is a lot of what they're basing this off of. So, and there's others that are involved as well, but those are some of the major players, and they have more than $500 billion of venture capitalists that are trying to invest in, so $500 billion. They're trying to invest in this. So about Praxis, we wanted you to hear some of the weird language because it's very creepy. It's like a religion almost.
It's very culty. It does have a religious bent to it. They all kind of think of themselves as philosopher kings. And as you start to listen to their interviews go on more than just a minute, you hear them making up facts and philosophies, co-opting sometimes revolutionary language, but Praxis it always itself comes back. Sorry, say it again.
Well, just the word praxis, choosing that is such an adoption of leftist ideology.
Yeah. The liberty. And what they really want liberty from is government regulation. One of the reasons I think that, like Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, the way they try to discipline labor by shutting down unions, they try to discipline government, the US government, by creating their own currency, right? So like they want to operate outside of any sort of democratic consensus. So their first thing was to create these network states that were outside the bounds of the US.
Yes, and one of the creepiest things that they wrap into this is this idea of Western culture and expanding Western culture and unified values and culture. And it's very creepy, and it's very, very rooted in white supremacy and colonialism. This is a colonial project, and we'll get into some of the founders of this and some of the things that they have they've said. That's very creepy. We have tons of videos from those guys, but it is a very westernized colonial view of their own kingdoms. And one of the main goals that they have is that these CEOs are going to govern and run, and that there's not going to be a democratic state or democratic processes.
Right. They don't believe in democracy or mess, which is why, you know, it always reminds me of philanthropy, where the same people who have destroyed our world and reaped or stolen all of our labor and wealth and resources then try to whitewash their reputations by giving crumbs back as philanthropy. But when you take a step back and you're like, well, why are people homeless? Why don't people have healthcare? Why? It's because of the exact same people who are making their money off of depriving all of us from basic human dignity. So it's a lot of the same thing. Like, now that they've destroyed our world, and they are all very aware of the environmental damage that they've done and the poverty that they have ensured would happen, their first thing, you know, Musk's big thing was he wants to go to Mars. And now that seems less and less likely to happen soon, then it's these network states. And now they're just trying to take over actually local towns. But so it did start with these network states. So do you want, so I'll just read you this little blurb, and then we can scroll through this Praxis website. Network states are supercharged internet communities that seek statehood, building economies, institutions, culture, and even cities. While early crypto adoption relied on speculative investment, future growth lies in practical applications, where network states use on-chain infrastructure to manage property, currency, contracts, and more. The next wave of crypto adoption on the path to crypto civilization requires crypto infrastructure's integration into the core function of society. Network states provide the path. Do you want to take it?
The acceleration zones. Do you want me to read that?
Yeah, go ahead. It's like a Passover. We're gonna each take a question. Go ahead.
A new type of special economic zone that accelerates technological process in the service of national priorities by attracting technologies and developing an institutional and regulatory structure that unlocks technological development. So they want to have these states where they can have these massive AI installations and massive development that we know degrades the environment and is extremely dangerous to the environment. Where do you think they're going to place these projects, such as their huge AI installations that are going to drain water, that are going to pollute? What part of town are they going to put those in? And then what part of town are they? It's like Metropolis, if you guys have ever seen that movie from the 20s and the 30s, where they have this grand vision of where the rich people live, but then the poor people are going to be over here in these areas working. Artificial intelligence, of course, building scaled power and data centers along with permissive model regulation. So permissive models. So anything goes in this hellscape.
No regulation.
Of course, the whole
that's really what it comes down to. It's a big plan to destabilize all of our existing systems and structure and save money by not financing any public assistance for anyone on any level. And they're going to start doing it in zones where it's allowed, but then it will become for everybody as well. And they see these groups see they want accelerationism because it gives them an excuse to get rid of the regulation and just make more money, is what it comes down to. But they see the biggest enemy of that is progress. They think we need to go back. It's a whole rolling back to when there were no rules. That's the most important thing that comes first in this system for them.
Even past the robber baron age, which was, the Gilded Age. They want to take us back further than that. They're talking about feudalistic states during the Dark Ages where there was a hyper caste system. We already know we have a caste system. We already know we're in this, but the reason this is so alarming, and I hear a lot of people always say, well, we're already doing all of this stuff. Not exactly. This is what we were already doing, but in hyperdrive with zero protections at a level that's just unimaginable.
And there is definitely a nihilism to all of this. Like transhumanism, they are, and that's the sort of religious aspect of it. They fully know that they've destroyed the world, and they are accelerating the end times in their own, like their own version of the end times, where we are somehow, or they are merged with AI to become like the Ubermensch. I mean, it's very like Nietzsche. They are, a lot like how fundamentalists who believe in Armageddon are happy, and the end times are accelerationists in terms of Israel. Their Zionism doesn't come from some great love of Jewish people. It is bringing about end times for the salvation. There's a lot about this philosophy with these network states that's very similar to that kind of that philosophy.
And you can become a citizen, Pat, if you want to scroll down and hit the join citizenship button and share with us all what it's like to become a Praxis citizen. I think that the join button is just below this graphic.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm scrolling. I thought I could take my glasses off for a second. The Praxian way of life. Oh, here's your path to Praxis. There you go. So how do you get... Now, this is not really open to the rest of us unless you want to do their laundry and remove the garbage from the streets. Join the nation, take the pledge. That's where you can click through and build the future of the West. Praxians are distinguished by their commitment to invest their time and energy into the empowerment of the nation and people of Praxis. To learn more about how you can contribute, join our Discord. Today, our main effort is crowdfunding a new city, says some of the richest people in the world.
The wildest part of this. $500 billion, and they're out here asking the poor people that are going to be punished by these policies they put in place for money to crowdsource their own demise.
Perfectly said.
It is insanity.
I'm on here and I can just openly say, Pat is right.
Oh, look at that.
Thank you. Good night. Let's end the show.
Our citizenry includes thousands of committed people from dozens of countries who have built technology companies worth over $1 trillion. Their courageousness, the courageous are joining us on this quest. Will you? It all feels very, what's his name? Tony Robbins. I mean, and it feels L. Ron Hubbard. That it is. The problem is there is nobody around these people who tells them no, who tells them this isn't really well thought out. What's going to happen? Not a great idea. People have been talking about this for millennia. What is the best way to solve the issues that we have that they are so desperate to escape? Which are the issues most of them have created?
And a big problem with it, obviously, is that it leans on rolling us back to eugenic policies that don't see disabled people as equal because they're holding back the accelerationism. They're holding back us going to the future because they're costing us all this money. And it also leans on white nationalist race baiting policies where white people are higher IQ to a lot of these groups. And it both presents that idea as a new idea for some people, and then brings in the racists to support this idea that's against their interest economically.
Yeah.
It's Ayn Rand meets the KKK meets Zionism meets robber barons, literally all wrapped up in a package.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things, so going back to who these people are, I mean, I think that maybe Curtis Jarvin is a good place to start. Just a couple of an introduction to who he is and the influence he's had, because something that I think hasn't been touched on as much with him, although there was just a really good article written about him that we'll get to, is exactly what you were saying, is the deep racism, the anti-Black, especially anti-Black phrenology. You know, they discuss things about IQ and head shape and race science. It is just so deeply vile, and not incidentally, the PayPal mafia, which is Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, and the third one that my brain just left me, but they are all they were all raised in South Africa, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Okay, so this is just a quick overview of Yarvin, who has recently had an interview on the New York Times podcast.
Curtis Yarvin had been writing online about political theory and relative obscurity. His ideas were pretty extreme, that institutions at the heart of American intellectual life, like the mainstream media and academia, need to be dissolved. He also believes that government bureaucracy should be radically gutted, and that American democracy should be replaced by what he calls a monarchy run by a CEO.
Monarch is good, it's a neutral term.
But while Yarvin himself may still be obscure, his ideas are not. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance has alluded to his notions of forcibly ridding American institutions of so-called wokeism. And Yarvin has also found fans in the most powerful and increasingly political ranks of Silicon Valley, like Mark Andreessen, the venture capitalist turned informal advisor to President-elect Trump.
We are living under FDR's personal monarchy.
Peter Thiel, a Republican megadonor, has called him a powerful historian. On top of it all, Yarvin has become a fixture of the right-wing podcast universe. He's been a guest on the shows of Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk, among others.
Thank you for that lovely intro, Tucker.
I've been aware of Yarvin for years, but always thought of his work as pretty fringe. A lot of what Yarvin has to say is disturbing, and the historical evidence he justifies it with is riddled with exaggeration, distortion, and sometimes just plain inaccuracy. But given that his ideas are now finding an audience with some of the most powerful people in the country, Yarvin can't be so easily dismissed anymore.
David Sachs. Sorry, David Sachs is the third one, and they weren't all necessarily born in South Africa, but that is where they grew up. And the link to that racism and the eugenics,
apartheid,
and seems just to be deeply held at their core beliefs.
And I will say there's one thing they didn't mention here in this intro about Yarvin, is that Yarvin is currently an advisor to both J.D. Vance and Donald Trump's administration. They found out after this New York Times interview, which was milquetoast. And now we see why. We'll get into that later. But the person who interviewed him, Ezra Klein, is now coming out with his own version of Yarvin philosophy. But Yarvin in that interview mentioned that one of his goals was remove all government employees, which he refers to as rage. He also talks about getting rid of the entire judge system in the country, which is what the Trump administration is attacking. He also has talked about many times, he calls it the cathedral, and the cathedral is press. It's the judicial system, and it is college and universities. So everything Trump is attacking right now that we think is under the umbrella of Christian nationalism, which it is in part, directly ties to Thiel and Yarvin and Sonerison's visions.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I pulled a quote from Vance. First off, Vance cited his work in his 2022 Senate campaign. So he brought up Yarvin directly. but he had in this interview, he said, Vance said Trump should fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, and replace them with our people. And when the courts stop you, stand before the country and say, the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it.
Yeah. So they are just blatantly going against everything a democracy is supposed to stand for. And, there's this really interesting framing where they talk about FDR as a monarch. And they say we're still living under his monarchy, which is hilarious because we're not even close to living under anything that FDR helped establish. But yes, the attacks on the cathedral are that and Doge. Rage became Doge, right? So, but again, it's like, excuse me, an accelerationist agenda of what every Republican who's ever come into power in my lifetime, at least, has attempted, which is to defund government, show that it doesn't work, and bypass Congress or any democracy or any checks and balances. Yeah.
And then I got another quote from Yarvin. This is where the race comes into it. He says, although I am not a white nationalist, I am not exactly allergic to this stuff. And he's made arguments for Black racial inferiority and claimed they are being suppressed by the cathedral. That's from Wikipedia. But they're leaning into all this
CRT, and
exactly.
Teaching real history, because real history just oppresses people. We shouldn't be teaching real history.
Yeah. You don't want to feel bad about your past. Which is funny because I know we've all seen the clip of Elon Musk on Joe Rogan talking about how empathy is the downfall of Western civilization, but they reserve an enormous amount of empathy for their own bad feelings if it's ever pointed out that their vast wealth has come off the backs of the damage they have done to the indigenous communities that they have exploited. Yeah, it is truly supervillain territory. Okay, should we get into some articles? Sorry, there are three of us now putting all of our research into one place, so we're kind of having to tag team it here.
And we've been researching this now for almost 3 months to really get our head around what's going on. So,
and as we said, each thing opens up a whole different, the way we always talk about Trump ripping the mask off of where this country, we already really don't have a democracy. We already have an oligarchy, whether it was, Biden or Obama or Trump 1 or 2 or Kamala, like they've all been supported by all these billionaires. But I think that the other thing is the way the colonial aspect and the genocide in Gaza is a model for what they want to bring back here. And as we've talked about, like cop cities are modeled after little Gazas, where IDF soldiers are trained on how to, obliterate Palestinians. The attack on free speech, all of the things that we are bringing, the dehumanization of people, which of course, Nazis looked at our Jim Crow laws as an example of how to legalize their subjugation of Jews. But all of these white supremacist colonial powers feed off of each other.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that we could do, I think you're absolutely right, and that made me think of something. One thing that we could do is that we could share a clip from Balaji next, and maybe show the quotes from his network state, since we just talked about Praxis. Praxis was born out of Balaji Srinivasan's book that he wrote about 7 or 8 years ago. Self-published, yeah. That was called The Network State, which he refers to as he's referred to recently as techno-Zionism, and which has nothing to do with the Jewish faith whatsoever. He's talking about the infrastructure of Israel, not anything to do with like a faith-based state, other than, you know, the transhumanism and the white supremacy that we had mentioned. But we could maybe look at the clip from him and the network state explainers, and then we could go into some of the rest of these dudes are.
Great.
Because I know you shared an article on surviving the Broligarchy, and maybe we could have that closer to the end to have something a little bit positive.
Yeah. A to-do list. Okay, great. So do you want to, is that the Uncle Ted?
Yeah, here's Balaji. I will play the clip.
Okay.
This is the fundamental difference between what I call Uncle Ted and Uncle Fred. Uncle Ted is Ted Kaczynski. It's a Unabomber. It's a doomer. It's a decelerator, the degrowther who thinks we need to go back to Gaia and Eden and become monkeys and live in the jungle like you know, Ted Kaczynski, right? The Unabomber style. Uncle Fred is Friedrich Nietzsche, right? Nietzschean. We must get to the stars and become Ubermen and so on and so forth. This, I think, is going to become, and I actually tweeted about this years ago before the current AI debates, between anarcho-primitivism, degrowth, deceleration, okay, on the one hand, and transhumanism and acceleration and human 2.0 and human self-improvement and make it to the stars on the other hand. This is the future political axis.
He feels like he just learned a lot of new big words and he throws them all out. I mean, it's embarrassing, actually. And that if these people didn't have the money they have, I don't think anybody would be listening to them.
They're comically stupid.
I mean, truly
shallow.
This is why we need to tax the hell out of these people. They do not deserve to have the weight that they do in our politics.
And I did pull another quote for him as well. Thank you, Wikipedia, for doing a lot of research for me. But he wrote in an email to Dark Enlightenment leader Curtis Yarvin, the other guy we were just talking about. If things get hot, it may be interesting to sick the Dark Enlightenment audience on a single vulnerable hostile reporter to dox them and turn them inside out with hostile reporting sent to their advertisers, friends, contacts. So they're going to weaponize the people that join these sites and people that support their ideology to dox and go after reporters and people that are pointing out, maybe you don't want to poison the water in this neighborhood because it's bad for people, you know, stuff like that.
The Canary mission on steroids, which is where all of the data mining and the surveillance, and I mean, that is truly how they are going to create their totalitarian state. And it's already a little too late. Again, one of the things that we've talked about so much before is if the product is free, you're the product. So we know, like, all of the social, sorry, I'm losing my voice. God, this is going to be Pat's happiest day.
Perfect.
As I just go totally silent. You know, as we put up all of our photos, any blogs that you've ever written, anything that you've ever, you know, talked about your kids, all of these things that we have put out there, sharing with friends and family, before we realized that Mark Zuckerberg was selling all of our information to everybody. And that has now been repeated on every single social platform. That's how they're training their AI that they want to use to make us completely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's their mechanism of control.
Yeah.
Scary times, but he's not alone. Should we just keep going down the list of these bad guys?
Yeah.
Do we want to show Balaji's weird what he describes a network state as?
Yes.
Yeah. Do we have that video? We got.
Oh, it's just a graphic. Sorry, I was just showing you where it was.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Let's see it.
Okay. Let's see. A network state is a social network with a clear leader, an integrated cryptocurrency, a definite purpose, a sense of national consciousness, a plan to crowdfund territory. That clear leader is the founding influencer who organizes the online community that eventually buys the land in the physical world. Crucially, that land is not necessarily contiguous. So you can see here, Balaji is like, this is where Praxis comes from, right? Because this was before Praxis was ever developed. These are quotes from his very first article he wrote about this several years ago, right before he wrote his book. And then here on his same website, the network state is a social network with agreed upon leader, an integrated cryptocurrency, a definite purpose. We kind of already know that. And they're crowdfunding it. And this is such a crazy map because he's calling Starbucks, like Starbucks being placed across the country, kingdoms. Starbucks has national coverage, but it doesn't rule everywhere. This map shows the nearest coffee shop among popular chains within a 10-mile radius. So he's like, okay, we can set up shop and then our businesses essentially take over everything with these corporate towns like Starbucks Kingdom. And to me, I don't know, that's really creepy. And it shows sort of how they want to go about doing this is first companies buy up land to build companies, and then they turn those towns into their own fiefdoms by eroding state laws, eroding the Constitution, and
bypassing them, right? Like they become their own independent states that are extra judicial, like outside of the judicial purview. And again, I mean, the crazy thing is, I know I'm a broken record, but like, how much is enough? Like, these are the richest people in the world. And this is like, they never need to lift a finger ever in their whole lives. They could be taxed at 90%. They still would not be able to spend all the money they have. And it still isn't enough. And so all of this is just about more control and more money.
Yeah.
But I mean,
more control and more money, and creating a network of people to support them to be extrajudicial or above the law in a way that, you know, their ideology says, hey, challenge the courts, fuck the courts, make the courts show their might, you know, make them send an army after us. Meanwhile, we've got our army of the Starbucks people we built everywhere in these little towns running on crypto outside of the government.
Yep.
Yeah, where, I mean, yeah, their idea for these company towns are towns where you're paid in the currency of what your leader is manufacturing. So, like Jeff Bezos wanted to have an Amazon company town where all of his employees would just live there, and they are, I mean, a lot like what we were talking about in that Aspen billionaire segment last week, where these billionaires will bring in immigrants or people who are very poor and just grateful for a job. They say, we'll give you housing and we will pay for all of your needs, and you can work off our investment in you. And by the way, this is what the US has done with the global South for the last 200 years, right? Like, we will help you, Haiti, but now we own you. We will help you, Ukraine, but now we owe all of your minerals. We'll protect you, but you don't own anything. We're just selling you off for parts. And that is what they want to do. They won't be happy until they own all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And they talk about it pretty openly. Who do we want to hear from next? Do we want to listen to what Altman and Reason have to say here?
Yeah. And again, both of these people were high-profile Democratic Party supporters until, a year ago. Just as a reminder, this is Sam Altman of OpenAI.
You can see ways in which, lots of ways, doesn't take much imagination, that AI does more to help the poorest people than the richest people. And we really believe that. We're enthusiastic about it. It is a huge part of why we want to build these tools. And I think it's a huge part of like the history of technology and the arc of what's been happening. So that will happen for sure. I think technology does a great deal to lift the world to more abundance, to greater heights, to better prosperity, whatever you want to call it. And I'm optimistic for that. I don't think that'll require any special intervention. I still expect, although I don't know what, and this is over a long period of time. This is not a like next year or, the year after that kind of thing. But over a long period of time, I still expect that there will be some change required to the social contract, given how powerful we expect this technology to be. I'm not a believer that there won't be any jobs. I think we always find new things to do, but I do think like the whole structure of society itself will, you know, be up for some degree of debate and reconfiguration.
Okay, first off, his opening statement that AI is unquestionably helping poor people more than rich people. I mean, that is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. First off, the poorest people don't even have access to AI or computers. So that's out the talk about globally. That's ridiculous. And the jobs that are getting displaced are, you know, between robotics and AI, poor people are not benefiting from AI. Poor people, what can they do with AI? They can make funny memes about Elon Musk or, you know.
And then they're banned from Twitter.
That's it. It's not solving anything. It's not eliminating the stove and all the hours laboring in the kitchen cooking food or something. It's not doing anything. It's taking their job, their receptionist job, their whatever job. Their paralegal jobs are going to be disappearing entirely. You know,
it's stealing their labor, it's stealing any creativity they have, and it's stealing all their data. But you know, the whole idea of effective altruism, and he was one of them, as was Bankman-Fried, was instead of going into a profession like a nonprofit and trying to help people that way, don't be burdened. Don't be burdened by what has been. Don't be burdened by the repulsive level of exploitation of the career you go into, hedge fund managing or selling Bitcoin or being a stockbroker or whatever the fuck. Don't be embarrassed by that. Make tons of money, and then you'll be able to give money to all those nonprofits. That's effective altruism. Take away the shame of doing the job, again, that by its very nature destroys society, and then give some pittance to these nonprofits to try to salvage your reputation and show that you actually do have some noblesse oblige.
And they're not even doing that. I mean, Sam Altman was like, we're going to have open AI. It's going to be completely open to the public, open source. And now it's like, oh, we're going to close it off. We're going to use it for Palantir. Maybe. Yep. There's a little bit of a rift between the two, but they're starting to work together now. And we're going to monetize it. So they started off with this whole vision of how it was all altruistic. It was going to be open source. It was going to be for everybody. Right. And then as soon as it became profitable for them, they zipped that up very quickly.
And just got huge government contracts for it. Huge, which is why they destroy the very bureaus of investigation that would be looking into them or trying to have some oversight, while they just steal all of our money.
Yeah, and we have a clip from Mark Andreessen, who he helped establish Silicon Venture Capital. So he, in a sense, he helped to build Silicon Valley. He developed one of the first ever web browsers that are similar to today. He helped Google Mosaic. Yeah. This guy, he comes in and he tells us, no, there's not going to be any jobs left after AI except for venture capitalism. And do you guys want to play the clip from that?
Every great venture capitalist.
Sorry.
I was going to say there's one more thing. The federal government recently, with cryptocurrency, are federally backing cryptocurrency, and David Sachs is running that crypto bro whole thing, and him and Mark Andreessen are working closely together on this project to nationalize, but not nationalize, to federalize cryptocurrency so that our tax dollars will back, or the funds that
the too big to fail when they destroy even more.
Right. And you know, this last election cycle, cryptocurrency, which Trump was initially against, became the second biggest funding of the election, next to Big Pharma.
Thanks, Kamala.
Was second.
And by the way, thanks Matt Damon and all those limousine liberals who helped sell Bitcoin and all that bullshit.
Yep.
All right. Andreessen telling us about how necessary he is.
Every great venture capitalist in the last 70 years has missed most of the great companies of his generation, right? Like, so the great VCs have a success, record of getting, I don't know, 2 out of 10 or something of the great companies of the decade, right? And so, if it was a science, you could eventually have somebody who just like dials it in and gets 8 out of 10. But in the real world, it's not like that. It's just you're in the fluke business. And so there's an intangibility to it. There's a taste aspect, the human relationship aspect, the psychology. By the way, a lot of it is psychological analysis. Like, who are these people? How do they react under pressure? How do you keep them from falling apart? How do you keep them going crazy? How do you keep them going crazy yourself? You end up being a psychologist half the time. And so like it is possible, I don't want to be definitive, but like it's possible that is quite literally timeless. And when the AIs are doing everything else, like that may be one of the last remaining fields that people are still doing.
I mean, the chutzpah to think that, what did he say? They have a 2 out of 10 success rate. They're playing with the house's money. They have billions of dollars, whether a business goes up or down. If it goes down, they will declare bankruptcy. They'll sell it off for parts. But he thinks that his psychoanalysis of what makes a business work is the only vocation that will
it's a true art and not a science like anything else, or else, sorry, you could put AI on it and replace that job. That job could be replaced by AI much more efficiently than anything I can think of.
It's the worst job in the world too, because it is eating up and spitting out small businesses. It is stock trading to the max, and it's the reason we had people like the person from WeWork and I forget, Elizabeth Holmes and people like that, where their businesses ended up bringing in, being worth $1 billion, but it's completely a scam. Venture capitalism is the most bullshit job ever. And he's like, the only job that's going to be left is mine. It's my job. My job will still be valuable.
And these are the bastards out there right now trying to tell us that, we should get rid of copyright law. Well, why? Because they could fund a business and eat up all these other businesses. But there's some little rules and regulations of, we did not invent any of this stuff, and this other company did, that are stopping them from making a couple extra billion.
Yeah. Jack, of former Twitter, Jack and Elon Musk were having a little lovey exchange about how we had to get rid of all the IP laws.
Pesky copyright laws. Yeah.
Steal it all. Yeah. Steal it all.
Steal our creativity and our souls and our,
all of it. Yeah. Next, who do we want to move down to?
Next, we could play that short 18-second clip from Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, about where we'll all be working before we move on to maybe Ellison.
Yeah. All right.
We could move on to, we could just go down kind of the order that y'all have.
Good. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. So this is Howard Lutnick talking about all of our futures when Trump brings jobs back.
Craft. It's time to train people not to do the jobs of the past, but to do the great jobs of the future. This is the new model where you work in these kind of plants for the rest of your life, and your kids work here and your grandkids work here. We let the auto plants go overseas. Right now,
none of that makes sense. Factories they're not going to be lifetime jobs, when factory jobs are the ones that can be replaced by robotics the easiest. So they're selling bullshit with all this.
And also they're selling what they tried to sell us in Appalachia about dying in the mines is actually great. If you die at 60 from black lung, you did your duty to the country, and now your grandson's going to come in and mine the coal, and then your grandson's going to come in and mine the coal. It's like, is that the American dream, that our kids and our kids' kids and our kids' 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 kids work in the factories for these billionaires so that they can pay us slave labor wages and we have no benefits or anything else? Is that the American dream?
That is their American dream. Yes, that's the problem. It's theirs.
Just crush unions. Americans. They have just gutted OSHA, so no protections for labor, no safety precautions, no health care. Like, the reason that the American middle class grew post World War II is because there was a heavy investment into the social safety net and social welfare programs. They don't want to do any of that. They just want to bring all the factory labor back here so that it doesn't ruin their supply chain issues.
And they want to keep us controlled with the surveillance state. Not to segue, but they want to keep us controlled with the surveillance state because they want to crush any labor uprisings when we try to fight back against this bullshit.
Yeah, and they have to. They know their philosophies are not popular. You know, they know people aren't really buying that Musk is saving the government and their jobs. They know that these tariffs aren't working, not to get into any of that stuff, but like, they know this stuff's unpopular. It's a matter of creating organizations and theories out there, like this Sol Praxis thing, to buy them time to implement the police state. That is the only way they guarantee any safety for themselves in this world that they're creating that is terrible.
Which again is, though they test their surveillance and their weapons in Gaza and the West Bank. They actually highlight that at Palantir, Oracle, that their surveillance products, their AI, and their weaponry have all been tested by Israel. That's a selling point for these people. So this is Ellison, who's the head of Oracle, talking about the surveillance state.
The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video. So if that altercation that occurred in Memphis, the chief of police would be immediately notified. It's not people that are looking at those cameras. It's AI that's looking at the camera. No. You can't do this. It would be like a shooting. That's going to be immediately, that's going to be an event that's immediately, an alarm is going to go off. It's going to be, and we're going to have supervision. In other words, every police officer is going to be supervised at all times. And the supervision will, and if there's a problem, AI will report the problem and report it to the appropriate person, whether it's the sheriff or the chief or whomever we need to take control of the situation. We have, same thing. We have drones. We just, if there's something going on in a shopping center, and I'll stop. A drone goes out there, get there way faster than a police car. There's no reason for, by the way, high-speed chases. You shouldn't have high-speed chases between cars. You just have a drone follow the car. I mean, it's very, very simple. And the new generation of autonomous drones.
You know, Alec Karakatsanis just wrote a book that I'm reading. It's so good, Propaganda, which is basically he's put together so many of his Twitter threads where he calls out the propaganda in the pages of liberal establishment media, mostly the New York Times, but how they run cover. And one of the correlations he has made is that every time cops are caught doing something, it is almost always a liberal leader of a city who coordinates with cops saying what we really need is more surveillance of the cops. We need more body body cameras and all those sorts of things. But those are always turned against the citizens. They never work to increase actual reform of cops' behavior. And so, they've made it so that, surveillance will protect us, but it's always used against us. Sorry, go ahead, Pat.
And they're what he's trying to do there is sell the benefit of, hey, maybe this will help with the police problem, so that he can get some leftists on board with this ideology. But in reality, if you have AI watching these things, AI costs money. So they're going to selectively implement the AI, and the AI is going to be trained. Well, people that look poor are much more likely to commit crimes. Yep. So we need to be watching the poor people more. And study after study shows that AI has racial bias built into it because it's
created by people who are racist.
And racist. Yes, of course. So the effect of all this is going to be more police, more of a surveillance state for poor people and people of color. And it's less important if you watch, like, white collar crimes aren't going to be caught by cameras.
Yeah.
So, it's just like the guy who takes you stole some diapers. Well, we got that on camera.
It's $50 billion of wage theft. That's not going to, nobody's going to look into that.
They're not going to be looking at, people that are doing insider trading,
right,
or worker exploitation. And also, one of the things that I found startling is what he was describing, and part of that was pre-crime. Basically, like Minority Report pre-crime.
Totally.
Like, oh, this person looks suspicious. This thing looks suspicious. We'll get a drone down there to like monitor them and stop it. So a guy walking down a street, like a Trayvon Martin in a hood, is a drone now going to, follow that person instead of like a John Fetterman following a black guy in his neighborhood? Is it going to be a drone,
And they're selling us on basically weaponized drones in the future because the cops can't get there fast enough. It's too risky to the cops, and they'll have to drive fast to get to the house. And, AI can make the call on this thing right away and send a drone. And then AI can also make a call on weaponizing, that's where we're going. We know this.
I mean, look what Obama did with the drones. 90% civilian target rate. And it was sold as something that was going to make our soldiers safer and take away the human, like only the US militants are human, not the people in the Middle East, but any danger towards them. And they are so playing on everyone's fear. And there's never a discussion of what the consequence is of trying to make everything perfectly safe, which is impossible, which takes away everything that makes this country, or supposed to make this country, or what we aspire in this country, our civil liberties, our freedom of speech, our freedom of protest. They want, we think all the time about how, like, when we go to an airport and you have to take off your shoes and take out your, you can't bring a bottle of water. You have to pour all of that because of one person who had, the shoe guy, and, nobody can wear a mask where COVID is still rampant, right? So like they choose which things that they want to make us scared about, and then they profit off of that. It is an enormous money-making venture for them. And half the time they're creating the problems that they try to convince us are going to end civilization, and only they can fix.
And they're already doing it now, because I know we've got 3 clips here. One of them is how they're talking about using surveillance right now through Doge, and 2 others illustrate very well that they are utilizing this technology right now in the West Bank and Gaza. Israel has been a testing ground for Palantir, and they have been utilizing this technology right now. They're already doing this. They're already using this technology, and they're about to bring it to the States is the next step.
And I think before we show the video, I think the transition period to AI, where it's not very effective, it's not good, you know, it's making a lot of mistakes. It's a feature, not a bug. And I think they're doing that in Israel. They use AI as cover to kill a lot of people. AI decided to do this thing kind of. Yeah. And if you look at all these Praxis and the network state and what they want to do here in the US, putting fear in people is a big part of the goal ultimately. And so when AI makes all these mistakes, that's okay to them, because that's also benefiting the state they want to create. That's so right. I think that translates. That's a lesson to me that I'm getting from Israel. They're going to bring it here. It's going to be flawed, and they're going to love it that it's flawed.
Yeah. Good point.
Are you
roll it? Who's got the video?
Which exact one are you showing? Yeah, Zainab, you've joined the group.
I'll get it. I'll get it. Let's watch the Doge one first, and then we can watch what Karp has to say, because those I feel like tie in directly with each other.
Because I think the people who are working with Musk and Trump think that they're protected, and they are not protected.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the voters think that they're working for them when they're working against them right now. Yeah.
Managers at 2 federal agencies have warned staffers that Doge might be secretly monitoring their communications, including using software to track computer activity and possibly using artificial intelligence to scan for disloyalty or DEI buzzwords. That's according to new reporting from Crooked Media and The Guardian. They spoke to more than 24 federal employees who shared emails from agency officials and screen grabs.
Anxiety and fear are running rampant among federal employees, in part because some of them have been told that Doge is monitoring their workplace, whether that be with artificial intelligence or just snooping on
by whom?
Their managers at these at least 2 agencies that they are being monitored secretly in meetings.
One of the things that the managers are warning employees about is they need to be careful with what they're talking about, because they shouldn't criticize Trump or Elon Musk or Doge, and to be really cautious about what they're saying.
According to this new report, EPA managers told employees that Doge was using AI to scan through agency communications to find any anti-Musk, anti-Doge, as you just mentioned, or anti-Trump sentiments, adding that employees should be, quote, very careful about what they say in private messages and virtual meetings.
This is reporting by Matt here and also Joseph Gideon from The Guardian. And what they found was that federal workers are scared. They're nervous. They're losing sleep. They're not able to focus on what they're doing. They're worried about employees who have been fired. They're worried about being fired themselves. And in addition, they are very concerned about surveillance. We've heard stories of some people who have gotten white noise machines to turn on in their office. We've heard stories about people going into an office break room to turn on the faucet. You know, kind of
like out of a spy movie, like get in the shower so we can have a conversation.
It's like old school Cold War stuff.
Right.
Except this is not the KGB. This is the Trump administration.
Yeah.
And again, every time, you know, they've had to re-up the emergency executive orders because of 9/11, after 9/11, whether it's a Democrat in power or a Republican, we just keep, you know, approving that and adding more ability to surveil all of us to that. And there is no way to be 100% safe. So it's really important to think of what the trade-offs are.
And think about that, the loyalty aspect, when they talked about loyalty to Trump. It's like federal agencies have to be able to, and of course, we've always needed to improve on this, but it's never been at this scale where if you have a problem, now you can't even come forward because it could look like criticism of the Trump agency. So OSHA might be like, hey, this factory is having like 10 workers die a month. We need to do something about it. You know, we need to stop dragging our feet. I need to bring this to somebody. Now they're going to be intimidated to bring things like this forward because that could be seen as criticism of the current administration.
They took care of that problem by firing everybody at OSHA. If you don't report it.
That's where these leaks and these stories aren't always accidental. Like, they want this out there. They want people to, they want you scared if you're working for the government because they want a dictatorship at the top. That's what they want. That's what this ideology is selling to the people as the solution is, like, let the president run the world. Let the president make all the decisions, no checks. This is the best thing forward for the country. And so that authoritarianism is necessary for him to implement a dictatorship. They have to all be scared. That's how he took over the Republican Party. And now these billionaires are in his ear saying, we have to take all regulation away, and we have to not care what the courts say. We have to not and we want everyone scared, because that's how we gain our power. We just keep them scared.
Which also, and sorry, I know I'm always the one to go back to Democrats, but, Obama prosecuted more whistleblowers and journalists than any president before him. So what is the proper avenue to reveal the crimes of your government? You're just going to end up in jail. Okay.
That's what they want.
Yeah. That's what they want. So do we want to show Alex Karp?
Yeah, and maybe for folks that don't know who he is what, the CEO of Palantir?
Palantir, right? Yeah. And thought of himself as a big liberal supporter of Democrats until just 2024. Jen Psaki was a partner at Palantir for a long time. Yeah.
And Palantir, and you guys had covered this on the show before, but there are the AI systems that Israel was implementing, such as Lavender, Daddy's Home, that were, blanketly targeting Palestinians, targeting Palestinian journalists, targeting 30-year-old or, 18, 19-year-old men to blow them up just because they say anyone who's 18 and a male must be Hamas. So they were utilizing these systems, and that's some of what Karp is talking about here, is the use of Palantir in Israel to surveil people, but they were also utilizing it in the West Bank in order to monitor people's social media so that they could go and arrest people for any negative anti-Israel sentiment.
Which is also why that whole thing of the Hamas ministry numbers of the dead was so, disingenuous is such a gentle word, but so cynical, evil, such a lie, so dishonest. They know who they have data analysis on every single Palestinian. They know. So when the numbers actually come out, they always have said that the Hamas ministry has been accurate in the numbers that it reports. Israel has a database of everybody there because of their surveillance. Sorry, Pat, go ahead.
No, but and yet they still have a known 80% failure rate to diagnose people correctly as targets. So that's where the system is failing by design as it transitions to being actually
and terrifying.
That's part of the system's working exactly how they work.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, here he is bragging to the Palantir board.
Alex, as always, we have a lot of individual investors on the line. Is there anything you'd like to say before we end the call?
We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am. Let's not talk to analysts about the burden of being right, our burdens of investing in ontology, our burdens of actually looking at the math, the burden of reading what the Rule of 40 is, the burden of being honest about what an enterprise software company is, or the burden of explaining to your friends that you're really happy. Maybe we should just stop talking about it. I'm very happy to have you along for the journey, and you are partners for us. Every Palantirian, we are crushing it. Everyone else who's listening, we are dedicating our company. We have dedicated our company to the service of the West and the United States of America, and we're super proud of the role we play, especially in places we can't talk about. And we love our success in the U.S. and globally. Also, we are doing in the United Kingdom and many other places. Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them. And we hope you're in favor of that. We hope you're enjoying being a partner, and we're really happy and very, very focused on what we're doing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes Q&A for today's call.
to scare
people
and
kill enemies.
Kill them. Effective altruism. Don't.
And he mentions the places that they can't talk about, the things that they can't talk about doing that they're so proud of, but they can't openly tell the public about.
But it's necessary to keep us safe. I mean, the fear that these people live in, and I do think they probably have convinced themselves, they know they're hated by the whole world, right? So they really don't want to be touched by it. They really want those billionaire bunkers and the moats around their castles and their network states, because they've created the very conditions that I hope will destroy them before it destroys all of us.
But we're not going to get, I don't want to take us on a tangent, but I just want to throw in here, because these guys were formerly Democratic allies, of course, we can't vote this out. We can't, Democrats aren't going to solve the Republican tech bros, because they will just become Democrat tech bros the minute Democrats take power. And they have so much money, they can buy their way into the Democratic Party again. I mean, they're still in, but
the first thing that Jeffries did when they lost was fly himself out to Silicon Valley to beg the few tech bros who hadn't already switched sides to stay with the Democratic Party.
And the Democratic Party has voted in order to fund Israel and Palantir for our use right now by the DHS, by ICE.
Exactly.
By
we didn't even talk about ICE, but Palantir is heavily involved in ICE.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. And we have another clip of him talking about utilizing it. We actually have one from him and Peter Thiel talking about utilizing this in Israel, and it really brings it all full circle, because it shows exactly what their aims are. Like, the crazy thing is that they are saying this stuff out loud. It is not a secret. It is not hidden. They're just out there talking about it. And if you think about the corporate media not reporting on this, it's absolutely appalling that this isn't something that is broadcasted every single day by the media, but it is not.
Well, you look at, Jen Psaki, who was a head CEO, or she wasn't CEO, partner at Palantir, then becomes press secretary for Biden, now has her own show on MSNBC. She's not going to tell the truth about their genocide. Of course not. Because when she's done at MSNBC, she'll get another job for, mid six figures back at Palantir, or more than six figures. But do you want to show the next clip? Which one?
I can click it if you guys want to.
Do it.
That a few people get wealthy, and if you said platitudes that were obviously stupid, you could.
You're getting wealthy off of killing Palestinians. With Palantir kills Palestinians with their AI and technology.
Oh.
You're killing my family in Palestine.
Yeah. And
How do you sleep at night?
Well, if you do, you want to hear my answer?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So, I think the primary cause of death to Palestinians. Okay. Do you want to hear the answer, or do you want to yell? Well, you don't want to hear an answer? Obviously. So the primary source of death in Palestine is the fact that Hamas has realized that there are millions and millions of useful idiots that will.
Can we get security up there?
Mostly terrorists, that's true. She believes I'm evil. I believe she's an unwitting product of an evil force, Hamas. That she unwittingly is part of their strategy, that she is a product. And the most important thing, arguably, in the book, or what Palantir, or what you could learn, is do not become a product of an ideology that sounds sensible.
They really do just love huffing their own farts. They're just the most disgusting people saying bullshit that sounds impressive with a few big words while they are committing genocide.
Here's the thing. There's only two possible answers here. AI and Palantir's AI is terrible, which is why there's so many innocent civilians killed, or it's intentional and evil, which is why so many civilians are killed. So there's no justifiable like way we should be continue into funding these AI projects, especially on our society. Like you're gonna do it here too, because you're saying it's failing. I mean, if it's a great AI system, you don't have the most civilian deaths in history because you're targeting so well. And
they've changed the definition. Clearly. That's the thing. It's all pre-crime. Just the way Nazis said that about Jews. Nazis said Jewish babies will grow up to kill us if we don't kill them first because of what we're doing to their families. They see every Palestinian is born a terrorist. They've made sure of it. Like, I don't know who's watching their phone for the past year and a half who doesn't want to join with Hamas at this point, right? Like, how could you not? They are ensuring that the whole world hates them, and that pre-crime is built into the system. So they see every Palestinian already as a terrorist. They see every Black and brown person in our country already, and poor people, as people who are going to commit crimes. Every person who is anti-capitalist, every leftist, everybody who believes we deserve healthcare or a clean environment, we are all their enemies. That is how they envision us. So they can kill Gita, who's protecting the forest from Cop City, because he was a terrorist, because he was against them. You're either with us or against us. Bless you. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
But that is why they have to lean in so heavily into white supremacy and eugenics ideology and theories like Yarvin, which they've all embraced, of this great replacement theory, and that they need this stuff to prop up all these evils. They need a big segment of society to believe in the eugenics piece to make any of this sort of hang on, or it just falls apart. Like once you start realizing, hey, maybe the brown people aren't so bad, you know, it changes.
Well, they don't need all of us to do these jobs. They only need a portion of us.
Yep.
So what are they going to do with the rest of us? To have their little utopias, their little cities.
Yeah.
I mean, they might as well start building the hamster treadmills for us to power their fucking AI or something, because that's what we're left with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do have, do you guys want to play that other clip from Thiel on this? We're going to talk kind of about Thiel's philosophy too, but I think that, did you guys want to play his one clip about Israel specifically, since it goes hand in hand?
Yeah.
With,
sure.
Yeah. And
are you gonna, yeah,
I'm sure most people know who Peter Thiel is, so we probably don't have to do an introduction of who he is.
Got it. This is the Israel AI clip.
So what do you think about the use of artificial intelligence, or lavender, by the IDF in identifying Hamas targets? And secondly, do you agree with Elon Musk about that the population decline is a risk for humanity?
Look, I'm not, without going into all the I'm not on top of all the details of what's going on in Israel, because my bias is to defer to Israel. It's not for us to second guess everything, and I believe that broadly the IDF gets to decide what it wants to do, and that they're broadly in the right, and that's sort of the perspective I come back to. And if I fall into the trap of arguing you on every detailed point, I would actually be conceding the broader issue that the Middle East should be micromanaged from Cambridge, and I think that's just simply absurd. And so I'm not going to concede that point. And what was the other?
God, I definitely need a translation. What the hell is he even saying?
Yeah. Well, I'll translate. I'm making a lot of money with the Nazis, and it's not for me to judge what the Nazis are doing, because I just I gotta blankly think they're right because I'm getting rich off it. So
and I don't think, I mean, I do think they believe that Palestinians are terrorists. I think they think that everybody who's not with them is against them. I do think that they have that simple a mindset. Which is,
I think sleeping at night
really
requires
important.
they adopt that belief at some point. But I don't know that they started with it. But now, with all that we know, how do you sleep at night if you're getting rich off of all that? You have to think they're just bad people.
And which is why he mumbled through that the entire time. Not to say he has any conscience,
right?
But he was struggling to find the ways to
in public to say what he really thinks in public, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was struggling to find the ways to justify not answering any single question about any of it, because he knows he doesn't have a winning argument or answer to any single thing she could have asked specifically.
And I think that was, it's funny because it always does come back to, I think that was at Harvard, right? Because he says, well, we can't make these decisions from Cambridge. And there is this sort of on the right idea of, ending the woke virus that they compare to Nazism. I mean, it's just also convoluted as Zainab, as you were saying earlier, of the cathedral, right? Like it's the woke mind of liberalism with a capital L. Because certainly it's been very clear, I mean, for decades, but in the last 18 months, that none of these higher institutions is at all small L liberal. They are all on board with genocide, with their hedge fund managers, with their huge donors suppressing speech and calling, cops in to bash the heads of their students and faculty who are protesting a genocide that they're invested in. But he still can't help himself but get in a dig at elite institutions.
Yeah, and I think that goes along with their erosion of education, but also their erosion of empathy.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, one of the things that, and we do have some clips of this as well, but one of the things that we were talking about, that we've been talking about all along, is the propaganda. And we're going to be doing a whole show on like the propaganda and the messaging that they're using. But right now, it's prominent among Christo nationalists too. But there's this idea that empathy doesn't belong in our society, and empathy has gone too far, and these institutions of education have fostered leftist Marxist ideas of just thinking of other people as human beings, according to them.
Makes you weak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Musk was on Rogan. I'm sure everybody has seen this, but just as a reminder.
There's a guy who posts on X who's great, Godsad.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. He's been on the podcast a bunch of times.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
And he talks about, basically suicidal empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there's so much empathy that you actually suicide yourself.
Yeah.
So that we've got civilizational suicidal empathy going on. And it's like, I believe in empathy. Like, I think you should care about other people, but you need to have empathy for civilization as a whole and not commit to a civilizational suicide.
Also, don't let someone use your empathy against you so they can completely control your state and then do an insanely bad job of managing it and never get removed.
The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. The empathy exploit. They're exploiting a bug in Western civilization, which is the empathy response. So, and I think empathy is good, but you need to think it through and not just be programmed like a robot.
Right. Understand when empathy has been actually used as a tool.
Yes, like it's weaponized empathy. Is the issue.
Yeah.
This is him with Javier Milei, the austerity, disgusting president of Argentina, basically mocking all of the people whose lives he's going to destroy by gutting social services. This is the empathy he believes is necessary.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw.
All right, I love it. Mr. President.
So at CPAC, he gets huge accolades and applause, right? With Millet there. Didn't go quite so well for him when Dave Chappelle brought him up on stage last year.
Make some noise for the richest man in the world. Cheers and booze, I see. Controversy, buddy. It sounds like some of them people you fired are in the audience. All those people are booing, and I'm just pointing out the obvious. They have terrible seats, and I understand. All coming from way up there at the last minute. Now I'm playing it niggas blue.
That makes me so mad at Dave Chappelle. First of all, don't be friends. Don't be friends with fucking Elon Musk, evil billionaire, disgusting, just ghoul of a person, and then make fun of people who come to your fucking show who are booing them and say it's because they're poor.
Yeah, that's.
I do respect that at the end of that, his audience turned on him for that. You could feel it. They're like, you know what? Fuck you a little bit, Chappelle. And
yeah.
So
class solidarity, man. It's a bitch. Because they will always. I mean, I feel like that is. I hate Trump. I hate Republicans. I hate all of them. They're all just awful people. But the one good part about Trump and the accelerationism and the brazen way he throws all of this in all of our faces is it has just ripped off the Band-Aid. And this is our government. It has been an oligarchy for quite some time. It has been a bipartisan project to enable this level of income inequality and the total takeover of their CEO pals.
I will say it's ripped it off, but it just looks like a Musk problem to the public because the media isn't covering all of this and all of these people.
You're
and
right.
that this project continues.
Yeah.
The second Trump is gone. I mean, the fact that Vance was in on this before Trump tells us we need to be very afraid of this. This is not Vance didn't adopt Trump's wacky policies on eugenics and dismantling and Doge.
Yeah. He
Vance
was being mentored by
Doge.
Yarvin long ago.
He was pushing Yarvin before Trump even knew he existed.
Yeah. And he was friends with Balaji. Peter Thiel funded his campaign in Ohio to the tune of what was $3 million or something insane he gave to his race up there.
Yep.
The billionaires funded his race in Ohio to booster him. They funded Hillbilly Elegy, which was a bunch of bullshit and wasn't even true half of the book, so that they could paint him as some like poor Appalachian from a county over from me, which his grandparents were, but he is not. He's
and
a
liberals
upper middle class white guy in Ohio who who was cosplaying poor,
who went to Yale or wherever. I don't even remember. I mean, which is fine, but like he was again, Ron Howard made that movie.
Mm-hmm.
He was a darling of liberal media. They thought that, because by the way, he also was anti-Trump back then. He couched his eugenics and his desire to get rid of the ugly elements in society, according to him, with much nicer language. So Democrats are fine with that. You know, we long for the days of George W. Bush. It's just so much better than Donald Trump. Oh, we all are going to vote in Marco Rubio to be Secretary of State. Like, I mean, you know, they
built the Trojan horse. They built the Trojan horse because Musk would not be a billionaire if it wasn't for hundreds of millions of dollars subsidized to him from Obama. And if it wasn't for Biden's contracts for SpaceX, if it wasn't for Obama privatizing NASA so that he could come in and swoop in with SpaceX, and so that the military industrial complex could then capitalize on, you know, the science that we were doing regarding space. They built this Trojan horse. How much in California did people like Newsom and others invest in Silicon Valley and these projects, these little company towns and things like that were springing up there? They invested in AI. The Democrats helped create the Trojan horse of this somehow all being good for us, because then, you know, once we get industrialized and we become more autonomous, it's the same shit that Ezra Klein, which we'll cover in a whole show, but it's the same shit that Ezra Klein is pushing with the abundance theory, that, you know, less regulation is good, and that there's going to be a utopia out of this where we don't even have to work. But none of them, not a single person has ever mentioned universal basic income once, not even once. So how do we survive if we don't? What are we going to do?
The new social contract they want us to adopt is what? Like, it doesn't include money, housing, healthcare,
company towns.
Right. It's
Amazon bucks and you'll like it. And somebody, I'm sorry, I can't remember who wrote it up above. And I didn't know this, but the Costco is now building apartments above their warehouses. I'm sorry, because I saw that such a long time ago. I can't find it. But yeah, that's the goal.
And that might objectively be a good thing, to be honest. But
only because they've made it so horrible and unlivable, right?
Right.
You know, I know we're getting to the end here, and we wanted to show a little bit of this woman, Carol Cadwalader, who was a journalist for The Guardian, and then just recently, The Guardian was basically all of the journalists were let go, and it was bought up or transferred over to The Observer. And a lot of it was because of the investigative reporting that she and her colleagues did. But she especially was one of the people to highlight Facebook and Cambridge Analytica's true interference in the 2016 election with all of the data mining that they did. And they came after her. I mean, you know, the whole thing, I mean, again, like all of these things sort of intersect, but the, you know, Mossad and the CIA and Jeffrey Epstein and, you know, the whole thing, like when Harvey Weinstein first started being accused by some of the young women that he raped. And then he hired Mossad, ex-Mossad agents who have companies here in the States to go after these women, find out everything about them, and then harass them. And they use all of these, you know, just the way the Doge is surveilling all of its employees. This is all going to be used against us. Our data, our biological data, our analytics, like the whole thing with Altman now is doing an eyeball scan for people who want to come into different conferences that he has or stores. You know, these don't give away your biological data ever. Punch in your passcode. I mean, they know everything about us anyway, but like, you know, they're selling all of the data from 23andMe to what, Blackstone? Who's buying it? All of that data that people gave their blood and their DNA to, right? So, but that kind of intimidation they are using obviously on journalists on student activists, on protesters. So this
Right.
woman just did a TED Talk recently on this coup takeover by the Broligarchy. But Pat, go
And
ahead.
this does connect back to Balaji, who was saying we're going to weaponize these networks of people to dox people who are pushing positions we don't like. And that's where this data intertwines with all this.
Absolutely.
The Russian and American presidents are now speaking the same words. They are telling the same lies. We are watching the collapse of the international order in real time, and this is just the start. Coups are like concrete. When they stop moving, they set. It is already later than we think. This image, some of you in this room might know these people. I call it tech bros in hostage situations. It's a message to you. This is Putin's playbook. He allows a business elite to make untold riches in exchange for absolute loyalty. Some people are calling this oligarchy, but it's actually bigger than that. These are global platforms. It's broligarchy. And it has to start with naming it. It's a coup. I know you probably don't want to hear that, and especially here.
Sorry, I was just typing out her name, Carol Cadwal. Oh my God, I'm going to say it wrong.
We all were.
Cadwalader. Oh, we're all writing it.
All three of us typed it.
That's so funny.
Go ahead.
So, you know, I bristle a little bit because there's always this like Putin's puppet kind of thing. It feels very like, you know, liberal BS, because meanwhile, Ukraine, we know, is also an oligarchy that's incredibly corrupt, which is not to take anything away from, you know, the despotism or the corruption of Putin, but like to act like Putin's the only person who's ever known how to, you know, preside over his own oligarchy. But I do think the coup is already here, but it didn't start with Trump. I think that's really important. And I know we all know that, but I think, you know, the more people can disabuse themselves of the notion that, oh, we get rid of Trump, he's the anomaly. No, he's just a byproduct of this system that they are all part of.
Right, because there's nothing to prevent these same people from buying the next people. And they're already 3 steps ahead of us buying the next people on both parties.
True.
Yeah.
And, you know, did we want to go over the article first that she had, any of the Survive the Brolarchy stuff? But there are 2 news stories. Well, one news story that explains where Greenland, the purchasing of Greenland came from.
Yeah.
And then Musk just yesterday started his first company, Town. So
yeah, why don't you want to do that before we get to her? Yeah. Sorry.
Sure.
Well, I know we don't. I think we should save the Survive the Broligarchy stuff for later, because it's a lot to get into, and let's just keep setting it up as much as we can. But the Greenland story is really telling to me.
Yeah, that could actually be. Sorry, guys, we're also trying to figure out.
There's just
so much material. It's insane.
But the news is coming at us every day too, right? As they're implementing these plans, so we get sometimes a new glimpse. We're constantly texting each other with new glimpses into how this is unfolding with executive orders and everything else in real time. So we've been constantly adding to what we're going to have in our next 10-part series, because sadly this is rolling out at such an accelerated and insane pace, and it's all tied to what we've been telling you about today with the Broligarchy, but it is happening in real time. So we're still wrapping our heads around how to organize it, and we probably will continue to, because it's so much stuff that is just all at one time.
Yeah, it's pretty overwhelming. Okay, did you want to show the Greenland stuff?
Oh yeah. Okay, so so this is an article from November of 2024. Praxis founder Dylan Brown says he pitched politicians on building charter city in Greenland. Praxis, the project looking to build a network state, has reportedly made a bid to buy Greenland. Project founder Dryden Brown has said on X Tuesday the idea of creating its sovereign territories, which we already kind of told you what that was. But they said if the attempt sounds eerily similar to Donald Trump's overture to buy Greenland in 2019 during his first admin, it's because Brown says that it was his inspiration. Like Trump, Brown said he is attracted to the island's abundant natural resources and geopolitically strategic location. In short, it's the perfect place to create a new city. And then they go on to say, for some context, I'm building a crypto native country called Praxis Nation with a network of people who founded companies worth more than $400 billion. We are scouting for physical territory to build our first city. Praxis is among a lineage of projects looking to create a new breakaway nations and cities. While there's a long history of so-called micronations from Grand Duchy to, I don't even know how to pronounce that, Flandricenis in Antarctica. Sorry guys, I butchered that. And then they go on to say, yeah, there's some other little countries that exist, so we're going to build our own network state. So that shows us Trump didn't just pull Greenland out of thin air. It is part of this stupid Praxis monarchical system that they want to do. So this was back in November before he had even announced it, right? Because that kind of came out of nowhere for everyone. This is where it came from.
And again, like it all ties back into colonialism, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it just shows you how all of this is intersecting right now. And, you know, when you have groupthink, that's one thing, but this is groupthink led by the most narcissistic, evil sociopaths running the planet. And they're putting all this stuff in place. And we're putting it on as just like Trump's crazy shit. And it's not, it's actually part of a bigger plan, which is really fucking evil. And, you know, it's going to harm our economy, the world's economy. The rich are going to get exponentially richer. Poor people's programs. We're letting the richest man on earth cut all the social programs in our country like it's no fucking big deal. And there needs to be something other than electoral politics to solve this.
Yeah. And, you know, in Texas, and this is happening in California under Democrats, under Newsom too. There's about 4 projects for company towns happening in California right now. And if you guys don't know the history of company towns, script towns in Appalachia, Colorado, those places, we'll be digging into that more when we dig into the places where this is actually happening. But you guys should look that up because company towns used to have you pay with CoalScript, and they're looking at, and script was everything you bought in that town, from your groceries to your housing, went directly to the owners, kind of like the story Amazon you guys did last. Yeah, exactly. That you did last week about Trump. Aspen, and about how Trump treats migrants, right? Migrant workers as basically slave laborers and indentured servants. That's what they're planning to do nationally. And the currency is going to be cryptocurrency. And then everything you buy is that meme coin, basically their meme coin you buy everything with. And now they're already talking about cryptocurrency as related to Elon Musk's town here. Look at his bust. Look at that bust, guys, of Elon. He's got a 9-foot bust at the gate of this town that looks like something Mussolini would have, or any totalitarian. It's psychotic. But this says, what's happening here is incredible, said Kit Frederick, an Oregon resident who bought a nearby plot of undeveloped land, recently enticed by proximity to space flight. Someday, every state in the union is going to want something like this. And the town is called Starbase. It's soon to be the newest city in Texas, and it's completely a private land mass where they're going to have their own government. And it says that much of the land within the proposed new city limits belongs to the company. Most of the voters are SpaceX employees. Gunnar Milburn, SpaceX security manager, was listed as the town's first potential mayor. His name has since been replaced by Robert Peden, a vice president at SpaceX. 2 other employees, the engineering manager and the senior director of environmental health and safety, would serve as city commissioners. As the case nationally, Musk would serve as an unelected overseer, an unelected king of his own little fiefdom.
Yeah, and you got company towns, cop cities, crypto, surveillance state. So you go work for this company, they're watching everything you do, they're listening to everything you do. You don't want to lose your job. You're going to vote the right way, right? Because it's going to benefit the company, it's going to benefit Elon. And if you don't, well, the cop cities, they're on to you. You're a thought police felon, you know, because you're thinking about forming a union. Holy shit, straight to fucking jail. And that's literally what we're looking at here, happening as a trial bubble, and people are just letting it happen.
Not only that, they have spent decades promoting this guy like he's some, you know, Ubermensch. Like, this is the Wall Street Journal putting him as the thinker, the guy who just wants to be a dictator of his own town and exploit workers and steal all their resources. And as you know, you were saying, like, they always put these towns, the data mining, the data centers that destroy, they use up all the water, they pollute the air, they put them in the poorest communities.
And you know why they're building that town? Because the 2 towns that he built Starlink in and the town that he currently has SpaceX in are trying to push him out because they have been polluting their shores and have caused economic devastation, literal economic devastation to those towns.
Yeah, they're already breaking the rules on, I forget what it is, but generators or something. They were granted permits to put in like 2, I'm calling them generators, I just don't know what they were,
Right.
and they have 6 instead of 2, but there's no regulation, and that's why they don't want regulation.
No
you know? They're just like,
yep,
hey, we do what we want. And if everyone in the town works for that business, are they going to vote against, you know, the business? Like this is where it all is. They are gaining so much power through every step they're taking that we have to stop them all. Every step needs to be stopped.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, I have seen a clamoring for some weed, drinks,
some joy.
We did not incorporate that into tonight's show, but we'll talk about it because there is something nice about having that reprieve from all of the disaster that we are facing. So we'll discuss that to bring it back, but everyone should feel free always, of course, to just keep replenishing as we go. Don't wait for us to to invite you to partake in more.
And we could definitely add that in if people are needing a break from this. We knew this was a very serious topic, so we weren't sure, you know,
I mean,
we were going to include that or not. But it does sound like people are like, "This is
don't wait for
as hell."
Don't wait for it to be voted in. Partake.
That's right. Yeah. Just partake, but we will find some ways. Just because I do think that's part of what helps us all get through is to find some moments of joy, because this is all pretty macabre. I mean, really, as much as it feels horrible, good. I'm glad, Jen. As much as, you know, it feels horrible to keep reminding everybody how much these ghouls hate us. I also feel like until everyone really understands, which I know all of us do, but like, this is class war, and it has been being waged against us for the last 5 decades. So they hate us. They are doing everything possible to kill us, whether it's by poisoning our air or denying us housing or not increasing the minimum wage or not giving us health, whatever it is, allowing viruses to run rampant, allowing salmonella. Now they were just gutting the FDA, they're gutting OSHA. Like, they hate us, and their project is to do away with us. So that needs to radicalize everybody. This
Right.
is
And
not
I think
something we can vote our way out of.
a big part of why we're doing this series, and it was Zaina's idea, and she did tons of research on this stuff, you know, to launch this project. But
You guys
we
did
need
too.
we need to, you know, everyone knows Elon Musk, and half the country at least knows he's a piece of shit. But all these other people, they need to be called out by name, and people need to be equipped with the knowledge of what the evil shit they're doing is, so that we can convince other people about how tragic and dire this situation is, and to take some sort of action.
Yeah.
So that's the goal of this series, is pointing
And a
out
lot of, oh, go ahead,
who
Pat.
these
I'm
are.
sorry.
No, but pointing out who these people are and equipping people with some of the information. And please keep researching yourself. But yes,
We're going to be breaking it apart into clusters of how it fits together, because God, when we were researching it, there were so many strings, and it can sound like hyperbole, or it can sound like a conspiracy theory. If
it's not a theory, but it is a conspiracy.
It is a conspiracy, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's tremendously real. You know, just one point when we were talking about earlier at the very beginning of the show tonight about the surveillance that Doge is doing. Now imagine how Elon Musk is going to surveil the people that work in this company town. They're talking about a monarchy openly. Yarvin
Social Security is all going to be done. Any public comment all through Twitter now. Social Security Administration.
And Yarvin was asked what was going to happen to us, Curtis Yarvin, under this techno monarchy. And he said, you know, have you ever seen Soylent Green? And then joked about us being turned into biofuel. And then after backlash for that, this guy who started out with a blog that got popular on 4chan called Mencius Molebug that was his surname.
Yep.
He became popular among the incel crowd and now among the white supremacists. And then he later said, we'll put them on like AI headsets. They'll be entertained. But it's essentially a hypercast system. So we have to break that down. And we went over some of the pockets. But what we went over with the AI in Israel is just like a drop in a bucket. We would have to do a half a show on that alone. Yeah. These towns, we have to do, you know, a whole show on the towns alone. And then
buying of the media, the destruction of the cathedral, like each one, they have their hands in every aspect of every part of our lives.
And they're manipulating us constantly with just the most insane propaganda. And so it's like that propaganda is hiding what they're doing. And I also feel like there's a little bit of a distraction because the liberals are so focused on Project 2025.
Yeah.
Because they embrace what the tech bros are doing at a certain level, or at least a good portion of liberals embrace what the tech bros are doing. So they're focusing on Project 2025 when in reality, they kind of go hand in hand. But in reality, what we are seeing more of is this broligarchy plan than even Project 2025. Yeah. Like I compared it's like 36% of Project 2025 is done, which is alarming and important because the white nationalists are a part of this.
Yeah.
70 to 80% already of the foundations of what the broligarchies want done has been rolled out in every single executive order that Trump just passed.
Yeah. No democracy has been involved in AI taking over at all. None.
And
nobody got to
once
vote on
those
the new social contract.
Yeah, but just to reiterate, when the Democrats come to power, because they are going to win probably the next election, even though they're doing everything they can to lose the next election already too, but they're not going to roll this stuff back because they're going to get bought by these same people who already have more power now than they did 6 months ago. And in 3.5 years, they're going to have tremendous power. And so they're going to be, we need to disrupt things and change things. We can't change Democrats' minds. We can't infect Democratic leadership with progressive values. They're bought to not care what we think at all. And that's only going to get worse. So we're not going to take over the party with Bernie's broligarchy tour or, you know, whatever. It's not happening. It's us. We have to do it.
And they haven't even talked about any of this really in their speeches whatsoever. And Ezra Klein is traveling the country, him and Thompson, talking about abundance, which we'll do a whole show on, YIMBYism, deregulation. They literally have their own push that they're doing that is coupled right along with what the Broligarchs are doing right now. Most of the Democrats are in favor of a new piece of legislation that is coming out that will prevent people from boycotting Israel, for instance. So
that's right.
The Dems are going along with a huge portion of what is happening within the Broligarchy, and they're just trying to rebrand it to like neoliberalism, a little bit of a sweeter monarchy, just a little.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You. We can do anything. You can live wherever you want. And then when you start, but you can't have healthcare. That's too difficult to figure out. But we can build all the deregulated housing that we want. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff. We'll bring a little more fun into it. But we're really happy to be doing this with you because it's a huge project and there is a lot to cover. So any last words before we sign off, folks?
Just remember that these people aren't stupid, because we keep hearing how stupid the Trump administration is, how stupid Elon Musk is. These people are not stupid.
Right.
They are narcissistic people with a plan, and they are just playing at stupid so that it looks like it's incompetence.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the ideas they have are not thought out in a way that would pass muster if they were questioned on it. And luckily for them, they are surrounded by yes men. They're never questioned on it. But their end goal, which is to rule the world, they're very clear on that. And they're very good at enacting their plan. So in that aspect, they're not to be taken lightly in spite of the goober state of most of them. Although I like some goobers. Goobers can be good people too. I'm a big goober.
Oh, Jenna, we'll be talking about the fake YIMBYs too. How that was taken over as well by the developers. That'll be part of. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, evil, awful, but all right, we love you guys. There were tons of protests over the weekend. It took some doing to find some footage that wasn't just all about Trump. There was a lot that was just targeting Trump. And while I think we all agree that he is a vile piece of excrement, he is not the only one. So we did find a little bit of footage of the May Day protests around the world. The coverage of Gaza is just shockingly absent from almost all media. And I know we all know this, but what they're doing there is what they're going to bring back here. So we got to get in the streets. We love you guys. We'll see you on Wednesday. Thank you. Cheers.